and welcome to Boulay Hillside Farms. Today I'm giving a quick overview of my vermicomposter setup. You really don't need much space for one. This system is only about 16 inches wide and I keep it tucked into the corner of my greenhouse. Before I get into the layers, I wanted to show you this little guy. This is a baby worm, and this worm bin system is always active and the worms are constantly reproducing. The worm farm is a bin layer system, meaning these bins all layer upon each other. Now let's get into the layers. This first tray is the top layer. This is where all of those food scraps go. The second layer is kind of the transition zone. You'll still see some worms living here, some on their way up toward the new food, and then there's still a few leftovers and scraps of food breaking down so they hang out a bit. And then there's the third layer. This is the gold. This is where all of the finished worm castings are, basically that nutrient-rich soil that the worms leave behind. You can see how dark and rich it is. This is the good stuff your plants will absolutely love. Down here at the very bottom is the catch tray. This is where the extra moisture drains out when I add water. It definitely gets a little goopy over time, so it's important to clean it out every now and then. A lot of people assume the liquid down here is usable fertilizer, but it's really just runoff. It can be pretty strong, so you never want to use it directly on plants. Some people dilute it heavily and use it sparingly, but I mainly clean it out to keep the whole system fresh. I'm just going to clean this goop out and add it back to the upper layers of the worm farm. The bedding will reabsorb that extra moisture and the worms will break it down as they keep working. It's not a problem at all. This is just part of keeping the system balanced. This next piece is the tray that sits between the bottom catch tray and the first working bin. It always collects a little bit of extra castings that fall through as the worms move around. I'm just going to scrape those back into the active bin so the worms can keep working through them. You can use these castings directly into the garden too, since they're all fully broken down. Now I'm just restacking everything back in place. I only pulled the bins apart so you can see each layer on its own. Once they're back together, adding a new layer is easy. I'll show you what that looks like next. Okay, here's an empty bin. I'm going to get it prepped for a fresh layer. I'm starting with some cocoa coir as the base, and I'm going to add a little bit of water to moisten it. Once that's hydrated and fluffed up, I'll add the torn up plain packing paper from a delivery box and mix in a little topsoil for structure. The torn up plain paper adds extra carbon and gives the worms something to move through. It helps balance the moisture, keeps the bedding from getting too dense, and gives the bin good airflow so everything breaks down evenly. Now I'm adding the cocoa coir, and it's a little dry, so I'm adding a bit of water. After I mix it in, you can see that it's actually going to be a little too wet. When I show you this, you can see I can squeeze the water out of it. So I'm just going to balance that out by mixing some of the topsoil. And what I want is a perfect damp sponge feel, nothing too wet where you can squeeze water out. As you can see, the topsoil isn't muddy, it's just damp enough. This helps balance the moisture and gives the worms a nice structure to move through. Now I'm just mixing everything together to get this new feeding bin ready. I want enough bedding and soil in here so that I can bury some food. Now that I've got everything mixed together, I'm adding a little more paper on top. This does a few things. It helps regulate the moisture so the bedding doesn't get too wet. It gives the worms a light cover to tuck under, and it also helps cut down on fruit flies or gnats. It keeps the surface tidy while the worms do their thing underneath. Now I'm adding these avocados that got a little too ripe. This part definitely gets your hands dirty, so if that bothers you, you can always wear some gloves. The worms are going to absolutely love this. They break down soft, mushy foods really quickly, and it pulls them right up into the new layer bin. Now that I've added the avocados, I'm going to cover them so they don't smell, and I'll add this bin back on the top of the vermicomposter so the worms can move up and get to work. This is the thermometer that comes with the worm bin. It lets me keep an eye on the temperature so I know the worms are in a good range. You don't want to be too hot or too cold. Steady, moderate temperatures keep them active and breaking things down. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If this helped you, feel free to like or subscribe and drop a comment if you want to see more about the worm bin or the farm.